Hi, everybody. This is Lori H. Schwartz, and I am so excited. We're going to be digging into the conversation around virtual production. We are on the road to NAB 2023, the 100th anniversary of the NAB show, and I am talking to the fabulous Erik Weaver, who I'm going to let introduce himself because his accolades are too hard for me to remember. But he is literally the guy to talk to if you want to know anything about where virtual production is going as it impacts really the entire pipeline for content production right now. And Erik has his hands in lots of different places. We're going to be doing a great conference track in Create on virtual production, really getting into the weeds of how this is really changing even the budgeting process and the logistics and sustainability and all sorts of interesting and really important things that you think about when you are producing any type of content. So ladies and gentlemen, straight from somewhere else, Erik Weaver. Yay! So Erik, tell us, give us your background because it's really interesting. So tell us what you're up to.
I work for a think tank. The ETC is a nonprofit organization in which I report to the CTOs of Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, Paramount, Sony, Epic Games, and other folks. So it's a lot of fun. I get to look around the corner at what's coming up next in technology. We've been around about 30 years, and gosh, I've been here about 10 years of that 30. So it's a lot of fun. It's been a real blast and focused on virtual production. We've got to deal with the entire pipeline of virtual production, everything from creation of assets, LEDs, and understanding how the technology works, all the way through final pixel and shooting and cloud workflows. So we get to do a little bit of everything. And we just finished our latest short, Fathead, and we're rolling out a series of white papers on how to get this done.
Exciting. And why I love talking to you so much is just when I think I know enough about this to actually have an intelligent conversation about it, you're always filling me in on, okay, well, now we're doing it this way because the technology is evolving so fast. So what's driving virtual production right now? What's really like at the forefront of why this is really happening?
So I think that we've kind of come a whole circle. We went through a hype cycle, especially with Mandalorian and all that, but now things are calming down and we're beginning to really start digging into the craft. This is a new way to do things. It's a new tool in the tool set. It doesn't solve everything, but you can now see how it's beginning to really change production. I saw one number that said as many as 40% of all production has some sort of virtual production on set involved in that. So one of the big trends you're going to be seeing is if you look at something like Mandalorian and these giant stages, or you look at some of the original work like Stargate did, which was almost Costco's TVs behind windows and other things, it's kind of coming down to the middle. And organizations like, say, Orbital would be a wonderful example of this. Orbital has mid-sized stages, and they're just really perfecting the craft. You know, they're working with a tighter pixel pitch. You know, instead of that 2.8, now they're coming down to 1.9 or 1.5, and they're beginning to be able to do more. One other major trend you're going to see in the market is basically that you're going to design these stages for different purposes. You know, if you look at something like JT Rooney's stage XR, he's got 4 frustrums or 4 different camera views working all at the exact same time on more of an XR stage, something that's designed for kind of music videos, live events, activities, which is a very different experience than a cinematic experience and what other people are trying to capture. So they're starting to see that purpose and understanding what your purpose is and why you would build a stage very specifically to those niche markets.
Okay, great. So it's really starting to narrow in and be designed for the output, for what the final product is. And maybe we should even back up a little bit more because I know I'm always getting corrected on this. When we talk about virtual production, then someone will correct me and go, do you mean in camera or on set virtual production? Or what do you really mean by virtual production. So maybe you can just define for us what it means when someone says that to you.
Yeah, so the term virtual production's been around a long time. So there's a lot of different aspects to it. What I'm primarily focused on, or what the major trend is on-set virtual production or in-camera VFX. And what that means is that what it's capturing from the camera is what your final image is. In the short film Fathead, we just rolled it out, and it basically is all in camera. There's absolutely no VFX done in the film at this particular point other than a dog we did, which was a test unto itself. So capturing everything live and real is kind of a now thing, and then a really neat emerging trend.
That's cool. It's funny again because so many people are experiencing this world right now, and like you said, they're coming at it from different reasons, so they call things different things. Now, the really hyped concept around virtual production is that it's leveraging gaming engines. And I know for a long time, the area on the set where everybody was working on the screens and the gaming engines was called the brain bar, because that's where all the smarty pants were using the gaming engines to manage the different inputs on the screens and everything like that. And then I remember you said to me, it's not called the brain bar anymore. But can you talk a little bit about what is happening now that is powering the camera, the screen, the LED walls, and all of that, and what's really changing about it?
So when you get into something like Unreal 5, where they get into nanite and lumen, there's a whole other level of lighting and ability to do this. So Unreal has really, kicked up the game on its sophistication of these tools into the market. And like you said, the brain bar, which is really now referred to or preferred to refer to as volume control, like an LED volume, so it'd be volume control, but those guys are actually very bright that have to operate all those different systems. It's really also amazing when you see different teams in different size stages. So we shot Fathead on the Amazon stage, the largest one in America, and they must have had 12 people operating volume control. Just an absolutely amazing and incredible team under Dan Schmerzik and Ken Dakota over there. But there's so many little aspects, from lighting to repeating the scene to flipping the engine to another version or another VAD design or set piece. So a lot of really cool things that they can do. Even at times going away from things like baked lighting into dynamic and changing little nuances here and there for the director. So that group is growing, and they're becoming an amazing resource on set.
So we might not see brain bar anymore, or be seeing them referred to as brain bar. We might see them referred to as volume control.
Volume control.
I went to see the new Ant-Man, movie, oh my God, the virtual production or visual effects credits were 2 days long.
Crazy.
But there was a credit. Yeah. There was a credit and a group of people under brain bar, which I thought was so interesting. Oh, really? And then I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, Erik Weaver wouldn't like that. but
I personally like the term brain bar, but it's
it makes sense.
The glossary, the VES glossary, and those guys driving that is kind of where the change is coming from. So.
Right, and that I think is the bigger point here, is that the tech is moving really fast in terms. You were talking about pitch, which is the distance in the LED walls between the pixels, and it gets sharper and sharper. And then you have this whole area of hardware and software that's driving those walls, and then you have the camera syncing to all of that, and all of it is continuously changing. So a show like NAB, do you think there will be a lot of all these elements of this virtual production story on that floor, because this is all sort of the future of how things are going to be made?
Absolutely. There's going to be some great ones. I think that anyone who attended last year saw some really wonderful work from Vu Studios. Tim Moore with his stage there. There was the Ari Fuse stage last year. There was that whole motorcycle thing. This year, I know Vu's putting something up. I know B&H is going to have a booth. I'm going to be setting up speakers in the HP booth. So kind of cutting edge people who are doing really neat things, giving talks on all of that stuff. So it's going to be a great year for this. And it's one of those times, again, like I said, the hype cycle is starting to come down, but the people crafting the art is just starting to really ramp up. And I think over the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see a major impact from this into the market.
That's great. So it's really the plane is landing, is what you're saying, and there's a lot to learn at a show like NAB, where the floor will really be filled with these different vendors and solution providers who are really demonstrating the latest. Now we're going to be talking in the conference track under Create, because we're creating content with virtual production. We're going to be talking about budgeting and how this all really impacts budgeting and also sustainability. Could you touch on that a little bit? Because I know that's one of the main reasons people are so excited about this. There may be a big investment up front, but maybe talk a little bit, hint to us a little bit about where this is all going.
So there's a lot of different aspects around budgeting and sustainability and the economics of this, and it is all flushing out. I'm not going to at this point say it's cheaper, but as we begin to get better and better, there are a lot of different benefits. For example, being able to reset or use a stage to knock down a lot more shots than normal. If you ever listen to ILM, they talk about how it's improving the time to shot about 30 to 40%. If you look at some of the mid-use cases, like say, for example, the work that's coming out of some of the TV series, you're going to see things like how this is doing more replacement of like a penthouse in the background window, and how they're showing $500,000 savings because they're not having to truck a whole group of people back up every single time and reshoot these spots, because they can use 2.5D and environmentally change the time of day, the lighting, all that stuff. So they're doing wonderful on some of that work there. And you're seeing a lot of other interesting use cases where efficiency is being improved throughout the process. But again, we're still early on, and this is a whole new way to budget. So it's still a little uncomfortable to some producers. And I think that what you really need to do is get aligned to a really good stage that absolutely knows what they're doing and begin to just test it out. Maybe start with a car processing shot, something really easy that you can feel comfortable with, that you can kind of learn the procedures or the budgets with, as opposed to just all of a sudden I want to do a full Unreal scene in a large volume with max budget on. I mean, that's a pretty bold way to go into some things. I think it's a little bit more like you want to get a little more comfortable, do easier things.
Are most of the stages right now, the people running them, willing to sit down and talk with producers about, this is how we think you should do this, this is where we can save you some money? Because there is a lot of education. And I know last year there were a lot of events around educating Hollywood. But in general, as people fall into their niches, are the people running these entities, are they willing to work with producers on be partners on that budgeting process?
Absolutely, because this is a hand-holding process. Go to someone like AJ Wedding over at Orbital. Go to someone like JT Rooney. Go to Eric Wolf in Europe in Halo Stage. These guys absolutely want you to succeed. And it's really funny because I had somebody who was looking to get in the market. They're like, don't you dare talk to this person or that person because they're competitors. And that's not true. At this point, all these guys are actually friends. They're trying to share best case practices, what works, what doesn't work, why it works. This isn't a good fit for my stage. You should take a look at this project. So there is an actual community being built here right now that does care about the success of projects.
Yeah, I have actually noticed that the stages are recommending each other, which I was so not used to, where a vendor will actually mention another vendor. So that's kind of lovely, and now it makes sense. And they're all going to have their special sauces and things like that. So there still is this education piece. And I know you have some colleagues that are hanging the shingle because they're specially focused on just producing virtual production, because it is a whole new skill set, right? So now there are new jobs being born about managing all of this. Am I correct?
A- Absolutely. So you look at somebody like Ben Baker and James Blevins doing Mesh VP. Mesh is line producing. So if you want to learn more about budgeting and how you would do this, they can help put that whole program together for you. Um, Ben and James both worked on Fathead, and Ben did the most elaborate Airtable I'd ever seen on how the shots are all working, what required. Because we did everything on stage, but it was really amazing the level of detail he got into and how he structured all that detail. So we knew exactly what we needed for every single shot and where it was in the pipeline.
And then, of course, if there's budget savings, if people are not flying around, if we're not building as many sets because we're using these LED volumes, that's where the sustainability concept comes in. And I know that some stages have some carbon neutral goals because of this. Is that a conversation that's coming up a lot for you?
Absolutely, absolutely. Not sending these huge teams all over the globe, doing everything. And originally, that was a reaction to COVID, because now you could control it inside these environments. You send a whole 100, 200 people, to North Africa or to New Jersey, and you can't control the flights, the times, the people they're around, and all those things. It's just simply not possible. And so this gave you that controlled environment, which you can be much more efficient on. I mean, it's also much easier to chase tax credits, for example. You're going to certain regions, like I know a major group that's taking a big building up in New York, and it's because there's a huge set of tax credit, or Louisiana or other places. So they can move it to the tax credits. Or, there's great shops in LA where you can have it next to the talent so they could just come in for the day and head home to their own houses at night. So a lot of good reasons here.
And I know also there are other solution providers being born too, like our colleagues at Magic Box, who are actually going to be showcased at NAB, parked there at two different areas, who bring the volume to you. So that'll be a great example of seeing something. And again, all different versions of tech and all the bits and pieces. Well, Erik Weaver of ETC fame and also just of Blue Hat fame. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about this. I am excited to hear your panel. You're going to be digging into virtual production and sustainability and cost savings, and really digging in with a great panel at the NAB show in the Create track, and then also at the show at the HP booth and doing other things. So really looking forward. This is NAB show 2023, the road to the 100th anniversary, talking to Mr. Erik Weaver, the guru of all things virtual production. Just look this guy up on LinkedIn if you want to know anything about this space. Thank you so much, Erik.